90% of pork sold in the United States has been injected with a solution of salt water, sodium phosphate, and preservatives before it ever reaches the store, not as a figure of speech, not as a rounding error. That's a USDA acknowledged number, and when you buy that pork by the pound, you're paying meat prices for up to 12% salt water. That's where this list starts. And once you understand what the industry is doing with pork, you start looking at your beef and chicken differently. Here's what took me a long time to piece together. This isn't one company's bad batch. This is an industry-wide system designed to make you pay more for less, labeled just carefully enough to stay legal. 4 corporations control 85% of all beef processing in this country. 2 of them are foreign-owned. And the grading system that's supposed to protect you, it's voluntary. The packers pay for it. And the labels tell a completely different story from what's actually on the tray. By the end of this video, you'll know the 5 biggest lies your meat label is telling you. Why the USDA grading system is basically a participation trophy. The specific words on packaging that mean your meat has been pumped full of chemicals. And the 3 things you can actually do about it at the store. Let's go. Lie number 1. Your USDA Choice steak might be barely better than Select. Here's what the meat counter at Home Depot and Lowe's and Walmart doesn't explain. USDA Choice isn't one grade. It's 3 grades hiding under one sticker. There's Upper Choice, Average Choice, and Low Choice. A steak in the Upper Choice tier gives you roughly a 93% chance of a good eating experience. Drop to Low Choice, and that falls to 82%. Select sits at 66. The gap between Low Choice and Select is almost nothing, but the price gap is significant. And here's the kicker. Wholesalers and high-end butcher programs like Certified Angus Beef cherry-pick the Upper Choice carcasses first. What's left after they take their cut is the bottom of the barrel, Low Choice. And that's what gets shipped to most supermarkets while wearing the same USDA Choice sticker as the good stuff. 72% of all graded beef falls into this massive choice bucket. Only about 20% of that qualifies as top choice. I personally think this is the single biggest information gap between you and your butcher. They know about sub-tiers, you don't, until now. Lie number 2. Enhanced is the industry's favorite euphemism for injected with chemicals. Let me tell you something food scientists know that the guy behind the meat counter won't volunteer. When your pork chop label says enhanced, or deep basted, or always tender, or guaranteed moist and juicy, that means a machine drove dozens of needles into that meat and pumped it full of a solution. Water, sodium phosphate, sodium lactate, potassium lactate, sodium diacetate, sometimes carrageenan, which is a seaweed extract. 90% of retail pork, 30% of beef. The reason pork gets hit the hardest is almost funny if it weren't so annoying. The industry spent decades breeding pork to be leaner because of that other white meat campaign. They bred out the fat that made pork taste good. Then they started injecting salt water back in to compensate for the flavor they removed on purpose. And yes, I realize the irony of an industry creating a problem and then selling you the solution. Literally. Lie number 3. Your ground beef is not what you think it is. A Pulitzer Prize-winning investigation by the New York Times traced a single Cargill burger patty, one patty, back to 4 different sources. Trimmings from a Nebraska packing plant, trimmings from a Texas slaughterhouse that processes old dairy cows, trimmings from Uruguay, and a processed product from a South Dakota company that treats fatty scraps with ammonia gas. The label on that package said one word: beef. That ammonia-treated product was what the media eventually called pink slime. Before the scandal broke, it was in roughly 70% of all ground beef sold in the United States. The company that made it sued ABC News for $1.9 billion. Disney settled for $177 million. And here's the part that should stop you. In 2018, the USDA quietly reclassified that same product as eligible to be labeled simply ground beef. No special disclosure required. It's back, and there's no label telling you. If you've made it this far, you already know this isn't the kind of channel that tells you what to buy. It's the kind that tells you what they hoped you'd never find out. Subscribe and hit the bell. We do this every single week. And look, if you're watching this thinking, if the meat industry is this bad, what about the grill I'm cooking it on? You're asking the right question. Same playbook, same corner cutting, same misleading labels. I got tired of watching people get burned on both sides of the equation, so I put together a guide called the Grill Buyer's Black Book. Every major brand rated. Who owns what? Which ones are being quietly killed? And a 4-question flowchart that gets you from "I have no idea" to 2 or 3 specific models. Scan the QR code on screen or check the link in the description and pinned comment. Lie number 4. Your chicken's been plumped with salt water, and they're allowed to call it natural. Typical plumped chicken carries 15% added solution by weight. Some go as high as 30, that bumps sodium from about 50 milligrams per serving up to 500. And because the additives come from natural sources, the USDA still allows 100% natural on the label. 70% of consumers think natural means no salt water. It doesn't. This costs American shoppers roughly $2 billion a year in water weight sold at chicken prices. The tell on the label, look for contains up to, followed by a percentage. If it's there, you're buying diluted chicken. Lie number 5. The retailer is in on it too. Walmart paid $9.5 million in 2024 for systematically overcharging on weighted meat. Packages where the sticker price didn't match the actual weight. Average overcharge per purchase, $1.67. Multiply that across every store in America over 6 years. And Kroger is currently being sued in California after investigators found 14 states worth of stores displaying raised naturally and no antibiotic signs over cases stocked with conventional Farmer John and Jimmy Dean pork. Pork that was never part of any antibiotic-free program. Pause on that. Kroger and Walmart account for roughly a third of all grocery spending in the country. Same margin-first playbook. Different logos. Drop the brand you're rethinking in the comments. I'll be in there. That's the list. And I want to be clear about something before we move on. The goal here was never to scare you into eating granola. The goal was to give you the information they didn't want you to have. So here's the other side. 3 things that actually work. First, buy whole vacuum-packed subprimals from Costco. Strip loins, ribeyes, brisket packers. They haven't been blade tenderized. You cut your own steaks and the per-pound price beats pre-cut. Costco's contracts call for choice or higher, and their prime is legitimately graded. Second, look for certified Angus beef. It requires upper 2/3 choice or prime +9 carcass specs. Only the top 20% of Angus cattle qualify. Not cheap, but it's the closest thing to a guarantee that your choice steak is actually good choice. Third, for ground beef, buy a chuck roast and ask the butcher to grind it in front of you. Or find labels that say single source or 100% whole muscle. Honest caveat, this costs more per pound, but you're paying for meat, not ammonia-treated scraps from 4 countries. Your call. You now know something that most people in the meat aisle right now don't know. The USDA grade is technically accurate but functionally misleading. Enhanced means injected, and the cheapest ground beef in the case is cheap for a reason nobody printed on the package. The safest meat is the one you source yourself. For everyone buying the shrink wrap tray because it's Tuesday and you've got 30 minutes, here's what you do. Flip the package over. Read the ingredient list. If it's longer than 1 word, put it back. YouTube thinks you'll like one of these 2 videos, so tap whichever one grabs you. And if you made it all the way to the end of this one, you already think like a subscriber. Make it official.